What's up, YouTube? Back at you with another video, another quick take. I got my main man, my partner, my UFC MMA analyst,
You already know the John Jones of podcast and the Prince Fresh shit. Thanks for having me, man.
my guy. Oh my gosh. So basically, this quick take was a video that I've had written down to do for probably the last 4 or 5 months. And I had hoped to be talking about fight predictions and how excited I was at the notion of this fight being announced. And unfortunately, this very fight that got canceled is unfortunately Spence versus fucking Crawford. Okay, now I have an article courtesy of ESPN. Mike Coppinger says Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford were on the verge of a deal for an undisputed welterweight championship fight in November, but with talks stalled and Crawford agreeing to a fight against David Avanesyan on December 10th, it's unclear if they'll ever meet in a ring, let alone next. Now, what I wanted to talk about is my frustration and my reactions to the fight getting canceled. Now, I'm pretty sure you're not familiar with either Errol Spence or Terence Crawford, right?
The names sound familiar. I'm not too familiar
All
with
right.
all their work, but
So I'm going to just propose a hypothetical and then you'll pretty much go from there. So imagine you have one fighter who fights at 147 pounds in boxing, who from the very start of his career, pretty much, he's made a habit of fighting all the top guys because his end-all be-all goal is to be undisputed, which is to have all four of the belts in boxing. Then you have another guy who was undisputed at 140 pounds, who moves up a weight class into 147 pounds, doesn't fight anybody worth note. And then the fighters that he does fight that are worth note are broken fighters, fighters that are halfway into retirement, fighters that nobody's ever heard of, and fighters that nobody wants to see him fight. Now, granted, Errol Spence just had a unification back in April up against a fighter named Yordenis Ugas, and he knocked him out in a TKO, and I think maybe like the eighth or ninth round, between rounds 8 to 10. I don't remember. And then his whole thing was, I'm gonna go for the final belt, which is the belt that Terence Crawford had, which is the WBO belt, and said, all right, we're going to make this fight happen, but if it doesn't happen, we're going to know why. Now, I'm not sure how it is in the UFC when it comes to making fights, and I'll get your opinion in a moment. But my thing is this. Errol Spence never had any issues in his career as far as negotiations were concerned, pay, none of that. That was never the narrative when it comes to making certain fights. In fact, last summer, he was supposed to fight Manny Pacquiao. Now, you know who Manny Pacquiao is. I know you know who he is.
yeah, of course.
Exactly. Now, there was no issues in terms of venue, pay, fight date, none of that shit. And we're talking about arguably the biggest, most popular active boxer at that particular time. No issues. But then all of a sudden, when you're dealing with this guy, Terence Crawford, all of a sudden, you have all of these things. Now, Terence Crawford has been associated with a drug cartel, Daniel Kinahan. I didn't even know who this dude was, but all of a sudden, I'm hearing this name when it comes to freaking Terence Crawford. Now, mind you, I'm going to throw this in the pot. Terence Crawford and Manny Pacquiao were both signed to Bob Arum, if I'm not mistaken, at the same time, which is Top Rank. And then they would fight for ESPN. So all of their fights generally would be broadcast on ESPN. Can you believe his promoter couldn't even make a fight with Manny Pacquiao, and they had the same promoter fight on the same network and everything? So in your opinion, whose fault is it? The guy who's coming up, a weight class, or the guy who went the harder route, got all the belts from all the top guys in their prime, has 3 belts. So whose fault is it? Is the guy with 3 belts or the guy with 1 belt?
The guy with 1 belt.
Exactly. So and it's like, this is the BS and the bullshit that unfortunately comes with boxing, where it's the fights that we all really want to see. Unfortunately, they never happen. They never happen when we want to happen, if they ever happen at all. Now, I know you being somebody who's, a UFC fan, it don't be like that over there.
Nope.
Now, explain why, and I want your opinion on this.
Why? Why is that the case? Well, I'll explain it. So, the great Chael Sonnen, undefeated and undisputed. If you haven't heard of his YouTube channel, go check him out. But he's a former UFC fighter. And he talks about boxing all the time. The difference between boxing and MMA. Boxing, right? As much as I think boxers are very talented. I would never, uh, talk bad about the sport. However, ego, money, and success definitely gets in a big part of the way of boxing. And the problem with boxing I've noticed is, like, for instance, Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. That's a fight people's been clamoring to see for many years. That never happened. Why? Well, it's because somebody knows that if they lose, they stock go down. They probably want an absurd amount of money, and they probably even get scared. UFC, the reason why you don't see that often now. Let me first say this: fighters do turn down fights in the UFC. However, Dana White, the president of the UFC, he doesn't take too kindly to that. If you get hurt or whatever the case may be, okay, we can understand that. But when you just turn down fights just because, well, he has a rule, and normally the more fights you turn down, the less likely you're going to be on the roster by the end of the day. And he takes that stuff seriously. He always says in the UFC, the best fighters fight the best fighters. You can't take John Jones, right? John Jones, one of the most dangerous men to ever walk on this planet, and put him against an unranked fighter. Why? Because he's going to end up in a hospital. So John Jones fights the Rampage Jacksons of the world. He fights, you know, I wouldn't say Anderson Silva because they haven't fought, but the Anderson Silvas of the world in his division. So in the UFC, they make it so that the actual elite competition fight the elite competition, and that's the way how it has to be done. Boxing, too many times fighters fight tomato cans, fight people that they really don't, they shouldn't be in the ring with, and it's all because they know the more they pad up their record, the better they look in the eyes, in the terms of the main event money, fans. So I think that's one of the biggest problems with boxing. It's not so much the fighters, but it's more so the money aspect. I feel like you know they need to stop worrying about their well, let me not say that. I do think fighters need to worry about their record and their bank account. However, if you're going to sign up to be a professional fighter and you are one of the top 5 guys in your division, there's no reason why you should be ducking them. And
Right.
that's why I always like Floyd Mayweather, because as much as people like trash talking him, he never fought some dude who didn't belong in the ring with him. Now,
He
granted,
fought
the
who he was
last
supposed to fight when he was not necessarily when he was supposed to fight them, according to some people. But if you look at his resume, he fought all the guys he was supposed to fight.
exactly. And people like to trash talk Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, in the last couple of years, has he been fighting obvious tomato cans? Of course, but that dude, he's in his mid-40s. He's basically going for payday. He's not in his prime anymore, so I could give him a pass on that. But when he was an actual pro boxer in the midst of his prime, he fought Manny Pacquiao. He fought. I just watched his fight with that. I forget. Shane Mosley. He fought
Right.
the people that he should have fought, and he didn't make any excuses. He won. He got his hand raised, made a lot of money, walked off stage left. A lot of these fighters nowadays, they care too much about their record and how much money they're gonna make than actually quality competition. And that's why boxing, unfortunately, hasn't been as big as it used to be, because it's plagued by tomato cans being in the ring with Deontay Wilder when they really shouldn't even be. They should still be
Right,
at the
right.
local gym.
Politics. I mean, mostly politics. And again, fighters just refusing to fight the guys that they know for a fact people want to see. And then they complain at, like, them not getting the respect and the prestige that they want. But it's like, yo, like, for instance, all right, one of my favorite fighters stylistically is Jamal Charlo, right? And Jamal has been chasing Canelo for like the last 3, some odd years. Okay. And my thing is, if you know for a fact Canelo's not going to fight you, then make your own lane. Don't look for Canelo to get, to forge the legacy that you want, because it's not going to come from him. So it's like, fight everybody that you're supposed to fight and make it so it's to the point where if the fight doesn't happen, that they can't blame you for that. See, somebody like Terence Crawford, and let me say something. Generally speaking, I respect all boxers. Terence Crawford is somebody that I watch his interviews, I watch his training videos, I watch his freaking, you know what I'm saying, all access, all of these different, types of things. And it's like, I've never lost respect for a boxer so fast than I've lost respect for Terence fucking Crawford, because it's just like, yo, and then on top of that, he tried to blame Errol. Now, granted, there are certain, network issues, involved behind the scenes. All right, so let's say, so the narrative, Percy, is that, Showtime, the CEO, like just recently like stepped down not too long ago. Apparently, Premier Boxing Champions is where generally like a lot of fighters, they tend to fight on PBC, Fox, Showtime. There's no money in it, so apparently it's like they didn't have the money to put the fight up and things like that. But at the same time, it's like, bro, just make the damn fight. Like anything that they sent your way to freaking agree to, just agree to the shit and make the fucking fight. But instead, you're fighting David Avanesyan. And mind you, ever since I got into the fucking sport in like 2016, I've heard of David Avanesyan, but mind you, this dude is a straight journeyman. So it's like, yo, how would you feel if, like, let's say, for a fact that like your favorite fighter could make an undisputed fight with like your other favorite fighter in the fucking UFC, but he doesn't do that to fight a blatant fucking tomato can for a career high payday purse? What does that tell you? What does that tell you? I don't give a damn about Al Heyman. I don't care about Steven Espinoza. All I'm doing is calling a spade. And what it seems like to me is Terence Crawford ducked Errol Spence. Straight duck.
Oh, look, bro. I don't even doubt that. I'm sure, like, I know you don't like Deontay, but he had made a point. It's like, I've been trying to fight Anthony Joshua for years, and he got excuses after excuse. Now, I don't know if that's the truth or not. However, people have been clamoring to see that fight for so long. Why hasn't it been made? Somebody's obviously making all types of excuses. Oh, well, I want an extra 10 million. Or you know what? If it can't happen in England, I don't want to do it. Or I need pay-per-view point. Like, when somebody's really afraid of a person or really don't want to fight a person, they'll make any excuse in the world to not want to do it. If you don't want to go to audition tomorrow, you will make any excuse. I got COVID, my leg hurt, my
just
back
to not
hurt,
do some shit. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the reason why it affects boxing more than UFC is the fact that, and I've been critical, we've talked about it before, boxing don't build up their cards. It's usually only the main event and maybe once in a while the co-main that they'll promote, but they don't promote the other fights. So a lot of these fighters look at it this way, from a business perspective. I love boxing, right? I want to go fight on the pay-per-view card. However, I'm not getting the same promotion if I fight on the same card as Deontay Wilder. So when I do get my chance, I can, fight somebody who really don't belong in the ring with me. I can show off my skills, do a little flashy movements, get the crowd going, end him pretty quick, get paid, and bam! Now I got the audience, I got the money, and I'm starting to reach the fame that I want.
Right.
And so I think if boxing needs a whole rework, because these fighters is just a byproduct of the society of boxing. When Mike Tyson was fighting, when Muhammad Ali was fighting, when George Foreman was fighting, they fought the best of the best. Now, granted, once in a while they'll fight tomato cans, but that's just boxing, pat up the record. But they fought who they were supposed to fight at some point. They didn't duck and dodge each other.
And then real quick, have you ever heard of a streaming platform called Black Prime, BLK Prime? Have you ever heard of that shit before?
No.
See, that's where he's fighting on. That's where he's fighting on. Black Prime, a pay-per-view fight against a tomato can for $39.95.
And this is another problem. Celebrity boxing, Jake Paul and all of it. That's, I've said that I wasn't a big fan of it because it is ruining the sport of boxing. You don't see Tom Cruise doing an MMA event with Conor McGregor in the UFC. Why is boxing allowing, internet personalities, influencers, and all these type of people invading their space? Because now it's not about the spectacle anymore. It's about how much money I'm getting paid and how quickly I'm getting out that ring. And I think that's why boxing has become the way it is. Like all these fighters, as much as we want to criticize them, they're just doing what boxing allows. All right, if you're allowed to, pass up every opponent that you can, and so you can get that spot that you want, then who won't take that opportunity? So, if you go to UFC, I'll tell you this: if you're going to go to the UFC, you will be fighting the person who you should be. So if you're a heavyweight, if you want to fight Francis Ngannou, you're going to have to fight the Curtis Blades, the Cyril Gans, the Tai Tuivasa's of the world, the Derek Lewis's. And that's the only way you're going to get to the title.
Right.
In boxing, however, it's not exactly the case, and that's
No, because you have different sanctioning bodies, and basically you have different organizations that have their own way of doing things. So even in this day and age now, or at least like let's say in 2022, you could be my mandatory, but then like that doesn't even really like hold that much weight anymore because I can figure out ways to finagle my way out of fighting you, even if you are my mandatory. It just doesn't mean anything. Now, granted, I guess like let's say if I'm unifying or some shit like that, then maybe that's like a legitimate excuse to evade my mandatory. But even now today, it don't even matter anymore because it's just like straight politics. It's straight politics. And that's why like one of my favorite boxing channels that I used to watch when I first got into the sport, Strictly Boxing News, this dude literally quit making boxing content and got off of YouTube because of the bullshit that comes with this sport. Shit like this. Shit like this. I don't ever want to hear Terence Crawford ever say that's Errol Spence's fault. Like he can't come back from this. Terence Crawford, canceled. Terence Bum Crawford. I'm sorry. Terence Bum Crawford. Terence Duck Crawford.
It's that weak culture over there in boxing. I'll tell you, this UFC fighters like Hamzat Chimaev, Sean O'Malley, who came into the UFC and after, maybe 3, 4, 5 fights, they're, about to fight for the title. And it's not because obviously this politics involved. When you're a fan favorite, you could command a crowd. Everybody wants to pay and see you, and you carry a certain demographic. Of course, you're going to, bypass a couple things. However, that doesn't mean they're avoiding the top 5. A lot of these fighters in the UFC, even when they're popular, Conor McGregor, when he comes back, no matter how popular he is, well, he can always fight for the title. I'm not even going to lie. However, when he comes back after his injury, he's going to have to fight somebody in the top 5. He ain't going to just come back off the couch and fight, Kamaru Usman or Charles Oliveira. He's going to have to fight a top 5 guy to claim that stake. All these fighters, no matter how popular they are, they always fight somebody in the top 5. You can't avoid it. And there's no way you're going to fight an unranked dude and fight for the title next week. Mm-hmm. But boxing, it's not that. It's a money game and it's a fame game. And look, I'm not mad at fighters for chasing after the money. How many fighters we look up to who are broke, got no job and struggling to pay their bills. So I understand it.
Yeah, but if it's going to be about the money, then say it's about the money, because this is the difference between like prize fighting, which essentially that's what it is, but then also fighting for legacy. It's two completely different things. Somebody like Errol Spence clearly is fighting for legacy. He's the boxer. If you remember, he's the one that got into the bad car accident in 2019 and he flipped out of his Ferrari, all of that. And then what did he? Yeah, and then what happened after that? He came back and fought a top 5 welterweight. Coming off of that, first of all, long layoff, which is a whole year layoff, and was like, nah, put me back in the smoke. Top 5 welterweight. Then right after that, went to fight Manny Pacquiao, but then, pulled out with an eye injury. Then Ugas fought and beat Pacquiao, and then he beat Ugas. And then was like, all right, cool. Give me Terence Crawford because he's got the last belt. Floyd was never undisputed at 147 pounds. Yeah, he might have been undefeated, but he never held all the belts all at the same time. So Errol Spence would have been one of the first to do it, if not the first to do it at 147. Forgive me if I don't know who was, undisputed at, 147 pounds in history. But as far as I'm concerned, Errol will be the first one in a very long time to do it. And it's like Terence Crawford is presenting a roadblock because now, so what's happening is, because Errol was saying, he was like, yo, I could have made this fight. I could have made a fight in November if he was going to do it. If he was going to do that, I could have just fought in November. If that's the case. So now he's going to apparently, so he's fighting December 10th, a tune-up, because he knew he needed a tune-up because Terence Crawford hasn't fought since last year. That's a long time to be out of the ring, first of all. Then they're saying they're trying to make the fight for February 3rd or the 4th. That doesn't make any sense. So if he's going to fight a tune-up, and have that quick a turnaround from December to February, get the fuck out of here. It's not going to happen. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not even holding my breath for this fight ever happening, period. Because I was already at a point where I was like, yo, I don't even want to hear about this fight anymore if they're not going to announce it.
Yeah.
It's just mad shit. Up and down, arguing this and that. It's like, yo, just make the fucking fight. If you're not going to make the fucking fight, then let's just stop talking about this shit anymore. Because if I was Errol Spence and then you did that, I would have been like, my nigga, you dug me. Don't ever say that like you want the fight, because clearly you don't, dog. Because if I was Terence Crawford, let's say if I was Terence Crawford, and my thing is all right, I was undisputed at 140. and then my thing is to be undisputed at 147, and I'm trying to, freaking, cancel out all the doubters, negate everything that people said. The way that I do that is by fighting Errol Spence and being as transparent as possible. I don't have to fucking point the finger. The fight didn't happen. But I'm not going to say, oh, it was their fault. Nigga, for him to have a whole fight that was announced for December 10th, then that means he was negotiating the whole entire time. Think about it. If you got a fight going on with me, right? And then all of a sudden that falls through, but then I have a fight already set up and locked and loaded for December, what does that tell you? That I had some shit in queue already. So how is it Errol Spence's fault?
Right. It's a situation that unfortunately plagues boxing way more in the UFC, and it's because they get rewarded for behavior. Like I said, when you don't really want to fight somebody, you make excuses. So to answer your question, why are they still talking about this fight? Well, if people want to see it, and that it is going to draw immediate attention. For instance, hypothetically, let's say I was in the UFC, very popular. Everybody wanted me versus Francis Ngannou, and I know deep down I ain't trying to fight this dude, but I know everybody else wants to. I'll milk the situation. Oh yeah, we're gonna aim for summer 2023. It's gonna be in Africa or whatever the case may be. And we're gonna sell out the joint. We're gonna have a good fight, knowing damn well I'm gonna find an excuse to back out the fight.
Yeah.
When the good negotiations start. Oh, if I'm gonna fight Francis, I'm technically my contract says 250,000 to show, but I want 10 million. Okay, well, you already know that's a no. All right, how about this? Instead of 10 million, let me get $1 million plus pay-per-view points, and I want a bunch of other stuff. Well, of course, you're gonna make any excuse in the book not to do it, but I'll continue to say I want Francis Ngannou because I know people want to chomp at the bit. I'll keep my name relevant, keep the topic relevant, knowing damn well I want to do it. So, boxing just needs a whole complete rework of the system. That's
not gonna happen. This is not gonna happen.
But it's sad to see the state how boxing has went from a decade, 2 decades ago to what it is now, because now it's just money fights. Is all about nobody wants to. I'm not saying there's boxers who aren't willing to put in the hard work. I'm not saying that at all. However, a lot of these pro fighters, are suffering from the same situation where they coming in after being pro, and now they picking and choosing what fighters they want to fight, what cars they want to fight on, what spot on the card they want. When you pay your due, then all that stuff naturally just comes. But in boxing, that's just the reality of it. And now with all these different streaming apps and all these different promoters and promotions, it's just ruining the sport. And
mind you, Terence Crawford was the one that had all of these demands and shit like that Errol Spence and them had to meet. Oh, I want to see the books, and I want to see the expenses, and I want transparency. I want this amount of money guaranteed. I want this and that. Dog, you don't want the fight, because I don't know the exact quote, but there is an interview out there, if you look for it, where Terence Crawford says, if I know I can beat somebody, I will take less money just to beat them, and then I'll get more money after the fact in the rematch. But he said if you allow money to get in the way of actually making like a top fight happen, then you don't want the fight. This that's literally like what is it? What, calling the kettle black or some shit? Whatever the fuck that quote is. It's like, yo, bro, like everything that he said, he was literally talking about himself pretty much. And me, it's like, as a fan, I was dead ass looking forward to it, because boxing has like seasons, you know what I'm saying, where there's like a lot of lit fights going on, and then it's something to look forward to. Because just recently I didn't watch the fucking Wilder fight, but a lot of people watched the Deontay Wilder Helenius fight, Devin Haney versus Kambosos rematch, fucking Alicia Baumgartner fine ass fighting whoever that white girl was, I forgot her name. I didn't get a chance to fucking watch that shit, but you know what I'm saying, like there were, and Clarissa Shields was fighting. So all of these people were fighting on the same night. So boxing has its seasons where it's up and down, but like Spence Crawford is the fight that, mind you, the best of the best fighters are talking about this shit. Everybody's excited. When you're talking about like, a reporter asking Devin Haney like, oh, well, who do you win? He was like, yo, like the fans win. He's like, I win. He was like, yo, my birthday's around this time. That's like for that fight to happen, that's a birthday gift to me. You know what I'm saying? But then again, it's like, yo, It's like so close, but yet so fucking far. And you know who's to blame for that shit? Fucking Terence Crawford. And then on top of that, you know his sister be going on Twitter talking shit, doing public relations for this guy. Right before they announced the David Avanesyan fight, she was on fucking Twitter talking shit, talking about blame Al Heyman, this and that. Maybe Al Heyman does have something to do with it. But why you talking about this shit as if like you got anything to do with it? Are you going in the ring? What is her fucking name? Taquanda Crawford or some shit? Yo, get the fuck out of here.
Every excuse, you know, when like I said, when you don't really want to fight somebody, it's everybody's fault but yours. This is everybody's fault. Oh, you know, the promotion did this, the other fighter did this, my management did this. It's always excuses, and you know.
And his opponent, plenty of people beat David Avanesyan already. So it's like, why, you know, Virgil Ortiz is getting skipped for fucking David Avanesyan? It makes no sense. Like literally, like all you got to do is just look at the situation. To me, that shit is in black and white. And again, I used to like Terence Crawford, but after this shit, I don't follow him on everything. I don't follow this nigga on everything. Fuck that. I don't want to hear it from this guy anymore. And on top of that, he had the nerve and the audacity to be calling out Jermell Charlo, nigga. Get the fuck out of here, yo. Get out of here. Nah, I respect him. Mind you, elite level fighter, one of the fucking best. However, like I said, you knew you was going up against a guy that would give you the fucking toughest fight of your life. And you wasn't about that shit. Period. If he actually wanted to fucking fight a Charlo, Jamal called your ass out. Nigga said he would come back down to 154 to fight you. You didn't want to do the shit. Nah. Shit, if he was as how he tries to make himself out to be, he probably would have fought Jamal if that was the fucking case.
Yeah.
So you don't want to fight Errol, but you want to fight fucking, you know, Jermell and shit like that. And you have unfinished business at 147. You did nothing. Nigga fought fucking Jeff Horn, because that's, mind you, he got his belt off of arguably one of the worst welterweights, period. No one cares about Jeff fucking Horn. You might as well call his ass Jeff Corn. Then after that, he fought Jose Benavidez Jr. Nobody talks about him at 147. Then he fought Amir Khan. Amir Khan got knocked out by Canelo years ago. Nobody talks about him no more. Irrelevant. He fought that nigga in 2019. Fucking Amir Khan was way past his fucking prime. And you know what happened after that? Amir Khan started to train with Terence Crawford. If you can't fucking beat him, join him. Then he fought, I can't even pronounce this motherfucker's name. Fucking E.G. whatever the fuck, Calavasquez. Nobody knows this guy. Then he fought Kell Brook, who got beat by Triple G, got beat by Errol fucking Spence Jr., hasn't been the same since. Okay? Fucking Sean Porter. Sean Porter was halfway into retirement going into that fucking fight. You know what I'm saying? And then he stopped Sean Porter. Well, in reality, Sean Porter stopped himself, or his father stopped Sean Porter. So that wasn't the Sean Porter that he fought was not the same Sean Porter that Errol Spence fought years ago back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Nah. And then David Avanesyan, now the proof is in the motherfucking pudding. So if you're a fucking Terence Crawford fan and you listening to this shit, I don't want to fucking hear it. I don't want to hear it. You can't dispute the obvious facts of the situation. Take your motherfucking emotions out of the goddamn situation. Yeah, you don't have to like Errol Spence, but you have to be able to see in fucking black and white that like literally this nigga don't want to fight him at all.
No,
because that would have been that sport is great for boxing, because there are some casuals that do know, you know, Errol Spence, you know, a little bit, you know, they do know a little bit of Terence Crawford and shit like that. That would have been good for the sport. That would have been great for the sport. And Terence Crawford cheated us out of that fucking experience to fight in his fucking hometown on Amazon fucking Prime, Black Prime for $39.95 in his fucking town. Like, what does that tell you? This man is getting a career high fucking payday in his hometown. This nigga been plotting on that the whole entire time. And he tried to make it seem like, oh, yeah, I want to fight Spence. No, you fucking don't. I don't want to hear that shit. I don't want to hear it. Because sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes it might be the politics. But in this case scenario, if it was the politics, he would have stayed his ass put. He would have been like, you know, I'm not fighting anybody until I fight Errol Spence. If you believe in yourself that fucking much, what you need a tune-up for? Why do you need to be fighting David Avanesyan? What for? Why? Errol Spence didn't have a fight? Because if that was the case, then Errol Spence would have had a fight announcement too at that fucking point. Why? You know why? Agree. Because they didn't want to fight Errol Spence coming off of a fucking, you know what I'm saying, a whole year layoff. Right. You're fighting arguably the best guy in your entire, the toughest opponent in your entire life, and you haven't been in the ring in a year? They're not, because November 20th, 2021 was the last time he was in the ring. That's a long ass time. So he knew what was up. Literally, just connect the dots. Connect the dots. I don't want nobody in the motherfucking comments talking shit. Because if you are, I'll block your ass.
No, you 100% right. And it's a situation that plagues both sports, but it happens way too often in boxing. Like Chael Sonnen said, he made a joke. He was like, people always say, "Oh, I'll fight Mike Tyson. I know I could beat him," but then secretly off camera, they like, "Yeah, I won $200 million to do it." So you don't really want to fight Mike Tyson, So it happens all the time, and unfortunately, it's just ruining the sport of boxing. And the best way to go about doing this stuff, when you don't want to fight some dude, is to price yourself out. Because if you not a big draw, you're not a huge fan favorite, you don't have that fan base that someone like Floyd has, you price yourself out. Oh, the fight fell through because money, they wasn't paying me enough. That's the easiest
These
way
niggas
out.
got money. It's not like these motherfuckers already don't got M's in the account. It's not like these guys are pressed for fucking bread. It's like, yo, the money's gonna be there regardless. But if it's if it's some shit that's gonna have your name down in fucking history and shut up all the doubters, I would have respected Terence Crawford if he just made the fucking fight. I would have been the happiest dude in the world. They're like, yo, Spence Crawford, February 4th. And then so mind you, then that means we have from October to February to build up the fight, let it marinate, all of that shit. I would have respected it. Nobody, I'm not gonna watch that shit. These days now, if I already know, even if I like the fighter, if I know for a fact that he's gonna like beat that fighter, unless I really like him, I'm not watching the fight. Like I didn't have to watch Devin Haney versus Kambosos too, because I already knew Devin Haney was gonna win decisively, and he did. So it's like, what's the point of watching Terence Crawford? Just because I want to watch Terence Crawford? Fuck that, because I know it's gonna be an early stoppage, probably third, fourth round stoppage, and then he's gonna say what after the post fight, fucking interviewing shit. Oh yeah, bring me Spence. Get the fuck out of here, bro. Get the fuck out of here. Like I'm not buying it anymore. Like from him, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, it's the same situation like what's his name? Jake Paul. Oh, you come out, you say I want to fight the best dudes, and then you get legit professional boxers, other combat sports veterans. But then you choose someone like Ben Askren, who, no disrespect to Ben Askren, was an Olympic wrestler. He had no business boxing Jake Paul at all. But he knew that it was an open invitation. It didn't mean he was calling out the Tyson Furies of the world. He was going to pick and choose, and that's what boxing is. You
not about that shit.
Opponent.
Yeah, not at all about that shit. But anyway, so what are your thoughts? Please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.
Adios.